Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Aiman Nazir and welcome to Knowledge Run. Students, today we're going to start a new course for our CSS preparation. We're going to start International Relations Part 1 and the lecture 1 would be Introduction to International Relations. In this lecture today we're going to study the definition of international relations and we would study the definition in detail. I try to explain what is international relations so that all of you can make a very good idea of this subject, what this subject deals with, and what are we going to study in the subject and everything. Okay, then I'm going to explain the elements of the subject. So this would be the lecture 1 for international relations. So starting with the definition of international relations. Students, I'm going to give two perspectives for the definition of international relations. First, I'm going to give a definition from a narrow perspective. Then, I would give a very comprehensive definition of international relations, that is, definition from a broader perspective. The definition from broader perspective covers all the things that international relations covers. So, how the scholars of international relations define this subject from a narrow perspective. They say that the field of international relations concerns the relationships among the world's governments. It is very easy to understand. Now, this definition, the source of this definition is the book International Relations by Joshua S. Goldstein. Okay, Joshua S. Goldstein defines this subject from a narrow perspective, and he says that international relations concerns the relationships among the world's governments. We all know the different governments of the world. Pakistan is a country, Pakistan has its government, we call it Pakistani government. Then India is a country, India has its government, China has its government, Saudi Arabia has its government, US has its governments. All the states in the world have their government. So the relationship between two governments is covered in international relations. We study these relationships in the subject of international relations between Pakistan and China, relation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, relations between Pakistan and USA, between Pakistan and India, between USA and India. We study all these relations in international relations. Okay, but this is a definition from a narrow perspective. This is just a part of internationals. It is not the complete international relation. International relation has a very wide scope. This is just a small part of international relations, okay? This is a definition from a narrow perspective. And if any of you has ever studied international politics, you will realize that this definition is somewhat similar to international politics. What we study in international politics? In international politics, we study the relationship between different governments. We study the political relationship between different governments. So this is just the definition of international relations from a narrow perspective, that this field concerns the relationships among the world's governments. Okay, this is a very basic idea of what international relations is. Now we're going to define the subject of international relation from a broader perspective. Students, keep this thing in mind, that international relation is a subject that has a very broad scope. So now we're going to cover the entire scope of this subject in a very comprehensive definition. Scholars define this subject as IA is the study of interest-based, political, as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. This is a definition from the broader perspective. Now, what is the difference between the definition from a narrow perspective and the definition from a broader perspective? Try to compare this. In definition from a broader perspective, the scholars are just talking about the relationships. What kind of relationship? Political relationship. And here, in the definition from a broader perspective, scholars are talking about the political as well as non-political relations. Okay? In the definition from a narrow perspective, Scholars are discussing the relationship among the world's governments only world's governments. But in the definition from a broader perspective, scholars are saying that it is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. Now, what does it mean? It means that besides world's governments, there are some other global actors also, and these global actors are significant. So it's not just the world's governments and the states that are the global actors, but there are some other entities also that the scholars of IR consider as the significant global actors. So this is the difference between the definition from a narrow perspective and the definition from a broader perspective. In narrow perspective, scholars are just discussing the relations among the world's governments. This is similar to international politics. But in definition from a broader perspective, and this is the comprehensive and the original and real detailed definition of ayah, scholars are saying that ayah is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. For example, relationship between Afghan Taliban and USA in the war on terror in Afghanistan and the peace process that was happening in last year. War on terror in Afghanistan and peace process. Now, in this event, one of the party was a state. USA was a state actor. But Taliban is not a state actor. Remember it, okay? Keep this in mind that Taliban at that time, now Taliban is definitely a state actor because Taliban is the government of Afghanistan. In 2022, Taliban overthrew the government of Afghanistan and set its own government in Afghanistan. But at that time, when the peace process was in continuation, Taliban was not a state actor at that time. Taliban was a non-state actor. Okay, so here we understand that one actor is a state actor, but the other is a non-state actor, that is Taliban. So it means that IR covers all these relationships among all the significant global actors. So we can say very simply that IR is the study of world in transition. Now this line here, it covers IR very comprehensively. It says that IR is the study of world in transition. Our world is in transition. Each day it is in transition, and the transition is taking place from hour to hour, day to day, and month to month, and on yearly basis. The world is in a transition. So we study all the processes that are happening in the world, all the different peace agreements between state actor and non-state actor, all the war, conflict, trade agreements, the economic upheavals and everything. We study this in this subject, international relations. So this was the very comprehensive definition of IR. I hope it makes sense and all of you now understand very well what is IR. Before moving, students here in the definition of IR, in the comprehensive and definition from a broader perspective, we have learned some terms here. And I think that to make good understanding of this definition from a broader perspective, I should explain these terms. Terms like political as well as non-political relations. Then interest, what kind of interest? And then significant global actors. To make even better understanding of this definition, I think I should explain these terms. IR is the study of interest-based. What kind of interest? Interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. We should define significant global actors, we should define interest, we should define political and non-political relations to make even a better understanding of this definition. So we have studied a very comprehensive definition of ayah. Now here we would define all the elements of the subject, and from where we got these elements of the subject? From the definition of the subject, ayah. We defined ayah as the interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all the significant global actors of the world. And we should explain these different difficult terms to make a better understanding of the definition. First of all, I'm going to explain what are the significant global actors. Here, we know that in ayah we studied the relation among these significant global actors. So what are these global actors? Well, it's very simple and easy to understand. A global actor is an entity that plays a significant role in all the processes or any process that is happening in the world. That is a global actor. A global actor plays a role in the processes of the world. Okay? And this actor is significant. Whatever this actor does creates an impact on the world and all the processes of the world. The global actors are further divided into two. First, we have state actors. State actors, it is very simple to understand. All the governments of all the countries that we have in the world today. China, USA, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. These all are state actors. All the states. Bangladesh, Myanmar, and China, Russia, and all the state actors, Malaysia, South Korea, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Australia, all the states are state actors. We call them state actors, and these actors are significant in the world because their role is significant in the world. These actors make an international society, and we all live in this world. We have relations and everything. Now, non-state actors. I have said it very clearly that significant global actors are divided into two. First, there is state actors, then we have non-state actors. So what are non-state actors? It is very simple to understand. Any actor that plays a role in the world, and if that actor is not a state actor, it is very easy to understand. It would be a non-state actor. If the actor plays a role in the world and it is not a state, then it's a non-state actor. For example, all the international governmental organization, United Nations organization, ASEAN, Al-Qaeda, the terrorist group. Al-Qaeda we know, and history is the evidence that Al-Qaeda played a very huge role, a major role in the beginning of the 21st century. But Al-Qaeda is not a state actor, it is a terrorist organization. So we can call this a non-state actor. Then we have Interpol, then we have NATO, all these significant actors that play some role in the world. And if that actor is not a state actor, then we call this actor a non-state actor. All these organizations are a non-state actor. United Nations is a non-state actor. ASEAN is a non-state actor. And all other such kind of actors are non-state actors. So these are the significant global actors. Students, these actors and every state or non-state actor that lives in this world has some interest. Pakistan has some interest, Afghanistan has some interest, USA has some interest, India also has some interest, and China also has some interest. We live in this world, and every individual also have some interest. For example, I am a human being. I have some interest. I want to graduate from some university, or I want to have some job. I want to secure some job. I want to clear some examination. These are my interests. So similar to the individual human being, the state actors and non-state actors also have some interest. Everyone in the world has an interest, and there is a possibility of common interest and conflicting interest. Now I'm going to define interest. I have said it that everyone in the world has some interest. State actors have some interest and non-state actors also have some interest. So there is a very huge possibility that states have some common interest and states have some conflicting interest. For example, China and Pakistan. China and Pakistan have common interest. Both the countries want to develop economically. Israel and USA have common interest. USA wants Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel as a sovereign state. And Israel also wants this. Israel wants Arab states to recognize Israel as a sovereign state. So Israel and USA, this is the common interest of Israel. Then in recent days, Iran and KSA have also reached a peace agreement. So we can say that yes, now Iran and KSA also have some common interest. They want economic development. They want peace in the region. So these are the common interests of different nations. But there is also a possibility that some states have conflicting interest. For example, Pakistan and India. Pakistan and India these days specifically do not have common interest, but they have conflicting interest. USA and China, the two superpowers of the world, these two countries these days have conflicting interest. China wants to replace USA as a superpower, and USA wants to sustain its position as a superpower. So this is the conflicting interest of USA and China. So these are the interests that the countries develop among themselves. And on the basis of these interests, relations develop among the different nations. We know that China and Pakistan have common interests. So what they're going to do, they would develop relations. If China and Pakistan have common interest, they would have positive relation. And if USA and China have conflicting interest, they would also develop a relation, and that relation would be negative. State actors and non-state actors develop relations based on the interest. This is the significance of interest. And I hope that the definition of international relations is now making more sense because we are studying the elements of the subject. China and Pakistan have common interests, and on the basis of these common interests, they have developed positive relations. They are cooperating with each other. They have harmony. They are reaching on different agreements, economic agreements, trade agreements. So states make, a question can arise in anybody's mind that why states make relations among themselves. They make relations on the basis of interest because they do have some common interest or conflicting interest. So this is the basis of relations. China and Pakistan have some common interest, so they would create relations, positive relations. And USA and China have conflicting interests, so these two countries make negative relations. A very good example of negative relation is the Russia-Ukraine war. War is also a kind of relation, a negative relation. Russia is not happy with Ukraine's agreement or its relations with the Western countries. So Russia and Ukraine's interests were in conflict with each other. Russia did not want Ukraine to be a member of NATO. So this is a conflict of interest, and Ukraine wanted a membership of NATO. This is a conflict of interest. Now both the countries, Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia launched a war on Ukraine. So war is a kind of relation. Russia and Ukraine these days are in a negative relation. There is a war between Russia and Ukraine. Now the nature of relation. Well, we can divide the nature of relation into two, political as well as non-political. Now, what does political means? We all know that in international relation, two states, two governments can develop relation based on their interest. If the relation is among two states, we would call this relation non-political relation, because the state is a political entity, so we can call this a political relation. But if the relation is among a state and a non-state actor, and we know that a non-state actor is not a political entity, so we would call this kind of relationship a non-political relation, because one of the party is a political entity and the other party is not a political entity, so we would call these a non-political relation. This is the nature of the relations. The relation could be economic, the relation could be cultural, relation could be religious, relation could be social, historical. This is the nature of the relation. But keep one thing in mind, that non-political relation can also develop among two political entities, that is among two states. There could be historic relation among two states, and we would call historic relation a non-political nature of relation. We know that Pakistan and India has a historic relation. That is not, we cannot call that relation a political relation. Although both the parties are a political entity, both the parties are a state, and state is a political entity. But we would not call historic relation a political relation. Okay, so there are two kind of nature of relations, political or non-political relation. Then we should study another element of the subject, that is level of analysis. Students, the scholar of IR divide the level of analysis into three categories. First of all, there is an international level. Then there is a national level. Then there is an individual level. We know what is the job of the scholars of international relation. The scholars of international relation try to analyze every event or situation of the world. They try to analyze all the development, all the agreements, everything that is happening in the world, because we have studied that IR is the study of world in transition. So the scholars of IR, they analyze different situations, different developments, different agreements and everything that is happening in the world. So they have three levels of analysis. They can analyze the situation or development at the international level, then they can analyze the situation at the national level, then at the individual level also. For example, the peace process of Afghanistan. If a scholar attempts to analyze the peace process of Afghanistan at international level, it would analyze everything that is happening at the international level. It would analyze the role of USA, role of Pakistan as a mediator, and the role of Afghan Taliban, and what would be the impacts of this peace process on the world, on the international level. Then, if the scholar attempts to analyze the peace process at the national level, it can analyze the situation of Afghanistan, the internal situation of Afghanistan. The peace process between the Afghan government, the government of Ashraf Ghani, and the Afghan Taliban. Intra-negotiation in Afghanistan. This would be in the national level, that the scholar is trying to understand what all the happenings, all the events and the development inside Afghanistan. This would be the national level, because the scholar is trying to understand the situation of a nation, of a state. This would be national level. And the scholar can analyze the situation at individual level also. For example, the scholar is trying to understand the Biden administration, and the scholar is trying to analyze the personality and the track record of Biden individually. The scholar is trying to forecast that how things would unfold after the Biden administration, after Biden takes oath as a president, how things would unfold under Biden administration. Because the scholar is trying to understand the nature of Biden administration. This would be the level of analysis at individual level. Okay, so these are the level of analysis, and the scholars of international relations use all the level of analysis. They use international level, they use national level, and they use individual level to make better understanding of all the developments of the world. This is what they do. So these all were the elements of the subject. We studied significant global actors, then interest, then relations, nature, level of analysis. I hope that now the definition of international relations makes a better sense. What is the definition of international relations? It is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all these significant global actors. Now we know what are the significant global actors. These actors do have some interest, and on the basis of this interest, these actors develop some relations among each other, and these relations do have two kinds of nature. These relations can have either the nature political or non-political. And the scholars of international relations analyze the developments of the world at three different levels. They analyze the relation among nations, and this is what we're going to study in this subject. So this was the detailed study of the definition of international relations and the elements of the subject. I hope it makes sense now. So we have studied the elements of international relations. Students, the significant global actors of international relations. This is a very important topic of the subject international relations, and I believe that we should study the actors of IR in detail. In the previous slide, I explained the actors of IR can be divided into two: state actors and non-state actors. Now we're going to study the types of the state actors and the non-state actors. Well, very simply, state actor, it is a single actor and it has only one type. We cannot divide it into more than one type. State actors, we know all the countries of the world, all the governments of the world are state actors. They play a role in the world, and we call the governments of the world state actors. Then we have non-state actors, and we have numerous types of non-state actors. We have international governmental organization, we have non-governmental organization, we have MNCs, transnational organizations, terrorist organizations, religious groups, ethnic groups, individuals, and there are many more actually. But today here we're going to study all these type of non-state actors, okay? So let's study these in detail. Starting with the state actors, we are studying actors of international relations, and the actors can be divided into two, that is state actors and non-state actors. And now we're going to start with the state actors. There's a very simple definition of a state actor. A state is a defined territory demarcated by a specific boundary in which a defined population lives, and this population is ruled by a sovereign government. A very simple definition of state actor. These are the attributes of a state: that a state must have a defined territory demarcated by a specific boundary, and a defined population lives in the state, and this population is ruled by a sovereign government. These are all the attributes of a state. Examples are Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, China, Bangladesh, Nepal, Tajikistan, Mongolia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, USA, Russia, all the states that we know are a state actor. So here we can see, let's see the example of Pakistan. Here is Pakistan. We can see, no, let's see the example of Afghanistan. Here is Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a state actor. Can we call it a state actor? Let's see. Afghanistan has a boundary. Afghanistan has a defined territory. This is the territory of Afghanistan, and this territory is demarcated by a specific boundary. This is the boundary of Afghanistan. Afghanistan shares a border with Pakistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. So this is the defined territory of Afghanistan. And in this territory lives a population, okay? The people of Afghanistan, Afghan people. And we know that the people of Afghanistan are ruled by a sovereign government, the government of Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban set their government in 2021, August of 2021. So yes, we can call Afghanistan a state actor. Similarly, we can call Pakistan a state actor because Pakistan also has a defined boundary, a territory, and people live in Pakistan, and there's a sovereign government also. So this is what a state actor is, okay? I have defined it very explicitly. Now we're going to study non-state actors. Students, before discussing the types of non-state actors, I would like to give a definition, a simple definition of non-state actor. Any actor that is not a state is simply a non-state actor. Let's study the types of non-state actors. First of all, international governmental organization. This is the first type of a non-state actor. Its definition is very simple, very easy, and you won't face any difficulty in memorizing its definition. International governmental organization. These are institutions which are formed by states through a formal treaty or agreement having a formal structure governed by formally codified procedures or rules. So what are international governmental organizations? These are institutions which are formed by states. Now, note this, that international governmental organizations are formed by states through a formal treaty or agreement. The states make a formal treaty or they reach an agreement and they form these institutions. And these institutions, international governmental organization institutions, have a formal structure. And this structure is governed by formally by codified procedures or rules. For example, United Nations. We all know that after the end of World War II, United Nations was formed by all the states of the world. US, China, Russia, and all these states made an agreement and they formed United Nations. What was this agreement? The agreement was United Nations Charter. All these states signed this charter and formed United Nations. And we studied that international governmental organizations have a formal structure. So United Nations also have a formal structure. There is a General Assembly, there is a Security Council. So this organization has a formal structure governed by formally codified procedures or rules. The rule and codified procedures, United Nations Charter postulate all the rules, and United Nations Charter govern the United Nations organization. So this was the example of United Nations, okay? International governmental organizations, these organizations are formed by states through a formal treaty or agreement having a formal structure governed by formally codified procedures or rules. Now, international non-governmental organizations. The name of this non-state actor tells about this organization. this type of non-state actors. Its definition is very simple: institutions which are privately owned by individuals or groups operating in one or more states with the consent of the respective states for non-profit purposes. The name of this non-state actor is International Non-Governmental Organization. It simply means that government would not be involved in this type of non-state actor, in this type of international organization. This is an international non-governmental organization. Government would not be involved in this. These are privately owned organizations, privately owned by individuals or groups. And these are operating in one or more states. And these are operating with the consent of the respective states. And these are operating for non-profit purposes. What does it mean? It means that these organizations do not earn any profit. These are operating for non-profit purposes. For example, International Red Cross, Greenpeace, Amnesty International. Amnesty International is an organization that is working for human rights issues, and this is a non-governmental organization. No government is involved in this organization. So we have studied two types of non-state actors: international governmental organization and international non-governmental organization. Multinational corporations. This is another kind of non-state actors, and it is defined as: these are organizations owned privately by individuals or groups operating in two or more states with the consent of the respective state for profit purposes. The definition is similar to international non-governmental organization, but there is a difference of just one word. International non-governmental organizations were operating in two or more states with the consent of the respective state, but they were operating for non-profit purposes. They do not earn any profit. But multinational corporations, they are privately owned. They are operating in two or more states with the consent of the respective state, but for profit purposes. They earn profit. For example, Uber, car service, McDonald's, KFC, Sony, J-Dot. We all know that the textile industry J-Dot has its outlets all around the world in Dubai, and I don't know if they do have one in London or not, but this is a multinational corporation. Okay, then Nike, McDonald's, all these organizations are multinational corporations because they are privately owned. They are operating in more than one country with the consent of the respective state, and they're operating for profit purposes. So these organizations are also a significant actors in international relations. They do play their role. And international relations, we study these kind of corporations. Now another non-state actor, transnational organizations. A very simple definition of this organization: these are informal associations operating in two or more states to achieve any common interest. The basis of these organizations is any common interest. They do have some interest, and they do not have some formal structure. They are informal associations. They are operating in two or more states, and they do have some common interest. For example, Free Media Association. Free media is the common interest of entire world. Everyone wants a free media. So this is a transnational organization. Every nation wants a free media. So this is the common interest, and on the basis of this interest, people have made this transnational organization, that is Free Media Association. Then the groups for women rights. Women rights is a common interest. So there are organizations that are working for women rights, and these are informal associations, and They are transnational organizations. They are operating in 2 or more states to achieve some common interest. Terrorist organization. It is another kind of non-state actor, and note down, students, here that this is a very important non-state actor. How can we define this? Very interesting definition, very easy. Organizations operating in 2 or more states without the consent of the respective state to challenge the writ of the state to achieve any covert political, religious, economic, or social goal by using the psychological tool of terror amongst masses via acts of violence. Try to understand the definition of these organizations, that a terrorist organization is an organization that would operate in 2 or more states. But these organizations do not have, and they do not operate with the consent of the respective state. They operate without the consent of the respective state because they want to challenge the writ of the state. They do have some covert political, religious, economic, or social goal, and to achieve these goals, they use the tool of terror amongst masses via acts of violence. They commit the acts of violence. For example, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State of Khorasan Province, ISKP, Daesh, and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. These are the example of terrorist organization. Now let's study the terrorist organization of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was a terrorist organization formed by Osama bin Laden, who was assassinated by US NATO forces. Al-Qaeda was a terrorist organization. It was operating in Afghanistan and it operated in US also. So it was operating in 2 or more states, but it was operating without the consent of the respective state. US did not have any consent in the attacks of 9/11. So it was operating without the consent of the respective state, and it was trying to challenge the writ of this state. It was trying to challenge the writ of US and Afghanistan also. Not Afghanistan, actually. It had safe haven in Afghanistan. It was residing in Afghanistan, but it was trying to challenge the writ of US because it had some covert religious goals. And to achieve these goals, it was trying to use the psychological tool of terror amongst masses via acts of violence. And what was the act of violence? The attack on World Trade Center and Pentagon in US. The attacks of 9/11, it was the act of violence. And all the other terrorist attacks, these are the acts of violence. So this is what a terrorist organization is. Now, religious groups. Religious groups are also a kind of non-state actor. A very simple definition: these organizations operate in order to protect the rights of a religious community or pursue freedom movement on the basis of right of self-determination on religious grounds, or to promote the teaching of a respective religion. For example, Catholic Church, Zionist movement of people who are residing in Israel these days. Israel are Zionist. Then International Qadiani movement, and then Islam for Peace. These are all religious groups, and they do have their goals. They operate in order to protect the rights of a religious community. They want to protect their rights. For example, Zionist movement, it wants to protect its right or pursue freedom movement. Zionist movement is pursuing freedom movement also on the basis of right of self-determination, and they pursue the freedom movement. This is what a religious group is, and it is a non-state actor. Okay. Then we have ethnic groups. Ethnic groups, these are organizations formed on the basis of common language, culture, norms, values, ancestry, history, or race, which operate in order to ensure the protection of rights of an ethnic community, or pursue freedom struggle, or promote the ethnic identities of a respective groups. For example, Kurds, Chechens, Uyghur of China, and Tamil. This right here is a picture showing the Kurds. We all know that Kurd is an ethnicity that is residing in Iraq these days and some part of Turkey also. They do not have their own state, so they are pursuing a movement for the protection of their rights and freedom movement also. So we call such kind of groups ethnic groups, and ethnic groups are a non-state actor because they do play a role in different developments of the world. Then students, there are some individuals who we can call non-state actors because these individuals they play a very major role in different developments of the world. Individuals who can influence the course of actions of a state and can alter the relations between two states. These are also non-state actors. For example, Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was an individual, but he played a very major role in the developments that were happening in the early years of 21st century, that is in 2001, 2002. In 2011, he was killed, and whatever the US was doing at the time was revolving around Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden committed the terrorist activities in USA and in Pakistan also and in Afghanistan also. So whatever was happening at the time in US, Afghanistan, it was revolving around Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden influenced the course of actions of USA. So we can say that he was a significant non-state actor. He was an individual. Then Ayatollah Khomeini. Ayatollah Khomeini was a person who was responsible for the Iranian Revolution of 1979. He was the leader of Iranian Revolution of 1979. He influenced the course of actions of Iran, and he was the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So yes, we can say that he impacted, his personality impacted the Iran, and he had a great influence on Iran and on the world also, because after Iranian Revolution, the relation between Iran and Saudi Arabia turned negative, turned bitter. So yes, we can say that Ayatollah Khomeini had a great impact on the world at the time. Then Pablo Escobar, who was a smuggler, and Saddam Hussein, who was the dictator of Iraq, and he invaded Kuwait in 1990s, early 1990s, and he also influenced the course of actions of USA at the time. We all know that in 2003, USA invaded Iraq to overthrow the government of Saddam Hussein. So yes, we can say that there are some individuals who have such a great influence, such a great impact on the world, so that we can call these individuals a non-state actor because they play a major role in different developments of the world. So these were the non-state actors that we study in international relations. I hope that all of this is making sense. So we have studied the definition of international relations in detail and all the significant global actors that we study in international relations. Now students, here I have an example, and we should apply the definition of IR on this event of history. The event that we're going to study here is the War on Terror that was started by USA in Afghanistan and the peace process in Afghanistan. Students, what is the definition of international relations? It is IR is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. So first, let's see who are the global actors in this event of peace process in Afghanistan. Peace process and war on terror also. Who are the significant global actors? First of all, United States of America. United States of America is a state actor, and it is a significant global actor. It is a state actor, okay? Then we have Pakistan. Pakistan is also a significant global actor in this peace process in Afghanistan. This is also a state actor. Pakistan was a mediator in this peace process. Then we have Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban at that time was a non-state actor. In peace process in Afghanistan, there were two major parties. First USA, then Afghan Taliban, and the third party, Pakistan, was a mediator. So we have three significant parties. Two of them are state actor. Pakistan was a state actor. US is a state actor. And the third is a non-state actor, that is Afghan Taliban. Okay? Afghan Taliban is a non-state actor. So we have three significant global actors. Now, these three significant global actors had some interest. What was the interest of USA in the peace process in Afghanistan? Well, the interest was the peace of Afghanistan. First of all, in war on terror, the interest of US was dismantling and destroying Al-Qaeda. This was the interest of USA when it launched war on terror in Afghanistan, when it invaded Afghanistan. Okay, so this was the interest. What was the interest? Dismantling and destroying Al-Qaeda. This interest developed a relation between United States of America and Afghan Taliban. And what kind of relation it developed? It developed a negative relation. The relation was relation of war. USA invaded Afghan Taliban. USA launched a war in Afghanistan. So USA had some interest, and USA had conflicting interest with Afghanistan. Afghanistan did not want war at the time, but USA wanted dismantling of Al-Qaeda. So there is a conflict of interest. USA wanted war in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan did not want war. No country would ever want war inside itself. Afghanistan did not want war at the time. Afghanistan wanted peace. Afghan Taliban was ruling Afghanistan at the time, and they wanted peace. But USA did not want peace. USA wanted war in Afghanistan at the time. So there is a conflict of interest, and a relationship developed based on this conflict of interest. USA invaded Afghanistan, and USA launched a war in Afghanistan. So the type of relationship was negative. So a relation developed between these two countries. Pakistan, who was also a state actor at the time when war on terror was launched, Pakistan aligned itself with USA. So Pakistan and United States of America had similar interests. They had common interests. Pakistan also wanted dismantling of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan because Pakistan did not want any terrorist activities in Pakistan from Afghanistan. So Pakistan, and we can say that Pakistan was also compelled to join United States of America in war on terror. So Pakistan was also dragged in this war. Pakistan joined USA in war on terror. Pakistan's interest was the elimination of terrorism in Pakistan as well as in Afghanistan. And USA used the land of Pakistan for launching attacks on Afghanistan. So we can say that yes, there were some common interests between Pakistan and United States of America, and there was also some common interest of economy. Also, USA was giving economic aid to Pakistan and the military aid also. So a relationship developed among these two countries also, and the relationship was geostrategic relationship. This relationship developed among Pakistan and United States of America. And in international relation, we study these relationships. We study geostrategic relationship, we study war and peace. This is what international relations is. And the relationship developed among Afghan Taliban and Pakistan also. Pakistan and Afghan Taliban were in conflict at that time. Pakistan was used by United States of America. Its land was used by United States of America to launch drone attacks on Afghanistan. So there was a conflict of interest between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban. These two countries were rivals at the time because Pakistan was using its land to launch attacks on Afghanistan. So the nature of relations was negative, and these were geopolitical relations because Pakistan is a neighbor of Afghan Taliban. Pakistan and Afghanistan share a border. So the relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan were dictated by the geography. So we can say that geopolitics relation developed in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So this is how we study international relations. Is this making any sense? Students, IR is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. We have studied a very good example of international relations here. USA and Afghanistan, they were in conflict with each other. There was a conflicting interest. So they developed a relation among themselves, and the relation was war. Pakistan and USA, they had the common interest. They wanted elimination of terrorism. So they developed relation among each other, and the relation were geostrategic. Pakistan and Afghanistan, they were in conflict with each other. Pakistan was launching attacks on Afghanistan. So they were also in relation with each other, and the relations were of geopolitics nature. So we study all this in international relations. This is the definition of international relations, that IR is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. Two of the parties was state. Pakistan was a state. United States of America was a state. But Afghan Taliban, this was a non-state actor. Then we can also apply this definition on the peace process of Afghanistan. United States of America wanted peace in Afghanistan. Pakistan wanted peace in Afghanistan, and Afghan Taliban also wanted peace in Afghanistan. Now this time in 21st century, in 2010, 2012, when the peace process was in continuation, all these three parties had common interest. So they developed a relation among each other. Pakistan played the role of mediator. United States of America was also involved in this process. Afghanistan was the main party in this process because Afghanistan was in a situation of chaos. So all these three parties wanted peace in Afghanistan. They had common interest, and on the basis of this interest, they developed relation. And in international relations, we study these relations. This is the definition of international relations. IR is the study of interest-based political as well as non-political relations among all significant global actors. We have applied this definition on a very significant development that happened in past few years. So I hope that now it makes sense. Today we have studied the definition of international relations in detail, and the elements of the subject in detail, the significant global actors, the state actors and the non-state actors. I hope that all of this makes sense. This is the end of this lecture. Today we have studied enough. In the next lecture, inshallah, we would study the multidisciplinary nature of international relations and the scope of international relations. Till then, Allah Hafiz. Stay focused on your studies, stay focused on your goals, and don't forget to subscribe the channel Knowledge Realm. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.